Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's first video. We're doing the February month-ahead forecast, today's first video. I can't really have a review on January. Normally we do these long-range forecasts. We have a review to start off with on the previous forecast. Unfortunately, the averages at the UK Met Office haven't been updated for quite a while, so we haven't got the Central England temperature updated since the 22nd of January, not sure what's going on there, and the climate averages page for the whole of January for the whole of the UK, that hasn't been updated either. That normally gets updated later in the first week of the following month, if you see what I mean. So unfortunately we can't really review the January forecast this month, but it wasn't especially good. We predicted that southern areas might come out with a slightly milder than average month, whereas northern areas might come out slightly colder. And actually that was a flip, flip the other way. So unusually, I can't show you the data on this, but I do know that unusually the south was colder than the north during January 2017. Very unusual month. A lot of dry weather around as well. That side of the forecast, we did go for a fairly dry month in January. That side of the forecast went better. But overall, I wouldn't call it particularly a hit or a miss. I think it's just one of those forecasts that it wasn't a disaster, but it wasn't all that accurate either. But as I say, unfortunately, we haven't got those averages from the UK Met Office to give you today. So that's a little bit annoying that we can't do that. But never mind, we'll go on with the February month-end forecast next. And of course, we will also have a sneak peek at March as well, because we always have a sneak peek at the end of the video for the next month. Before I get on with the February month-end forecast, though, just to say about the ads at Gas Office, there's links, articles on all the pages. You have a browse widget to click through links. You're going to help us to pay for our website, and thanks very much for doing that. There's also video ads on most pages. They open out within the content. You can close them back up again if you want by pressing the little X's on the video. And thanks very much to everybody for getting involved, and thanks for doing that. So we're going to start off CFS-V2, and then we'll have a look at the Beijing Climate Centre, see if we can come to an idea about what may be ahead for February 2017. Starting off with 700 millibar height anomaly then from the CFS-V2. This is placing a very deep trough out in the Atlantic. Looks a really unsettled month there. And a big ridge, have to change the colour, there's a big ridge sitting over on the eastern side of Europe. That's the ridge that's given a lot of cold weather to many parts of Europe through the course of December and particularly January. That's being pushed back now into the east of Europe by the CFS-V2 as it wants to rattle in the Atlantic, particularly to the west of Europe. It's seen a very unsettled month in February with low pressure looking really dominant. So the temperature anomaly for February looks, well, clearly it's going for a very mild month. It's doing it across the whole of Europe. So we've got milder than average temperature anomalies as far west as Ireland and Portugal, and as far east as the Black Sea and western parts of Russia. Very significantly milder than average month through all parts of Europe in February, if the model is right. That's because it's pushing the jet stream through rather like that. So it is going very much to town with a really mild month during February. And also in an Atlantic driven month, you'll not be surprised to see that it's coming out wetter than average, particularly so for the west of Europe. So Ireland, the UK, France, down into Spain and Portugal, very significantly wetter than average there. Over in the east of Europe, where we still have that ridge, it does look drier there. So central, east and southeast of Europe coming out drier than average. But for us, it really is the Atlantic that the model wants to drive in, producing a very wet and a very mild month to end the winter of 2017. So, very strong signal from the CFS-V2 for a mild Atlantic-driven and really wet and windy month in February. What about the Beijing Climate Centre? Well, these are the 500 millibar height anomalies broken down into 10-day periods. First of all, the first 10-day period taking us from the 1st through to the 10th of February. we find that we've got a deep trough of low pressure centred around not just the Atlantic but into the UK as well. There's the ridge over in the east of Europe. So certainly to start off with in February, it is seeing a very Atlantic driven, very unsettled, mild, wet and windy first week to 10 days of the month. What about the next 10-day period? Well, it is still placing the trough in the Atlantic. There is low pressure there. It's pushing back into the Atlantic seemingly, and we are raising the heights quite significantly to the north. So it is seeing, much more so than the CFSV2, it is seeing pressure rising to the north. I'm not sure it's quite enough, however, to be keeping these areas of low pressure at bay. So overall, I think through this middle 10 days of February, which is the 11th to 20th of February, it's still pulling in this pretty strong westerly flow, and it still looks quite unsettled, that to me, and Atlantic driven. And then we go through to the final 10-day period, which is the 21st of February through to the 2nd of March. Remember, February is a shorter month. And this one, again, trough of low pressure is centering in the Atlantic. So really a buoyant Atlantic in February if these two models right. It's raising heights to the east and to the northeast again. So this is a battleground scenario. The low pressure in the Atlantic is trying to bring in the mild westerlies. This ridge over to the east is trying to bring in colder easterlies, and quite where that would go in terms of that divide between the west and the east, we really would have to wait and see. Very uncertain. There would be the potential to bring in some colder air from the east with that, most definitely. However, overall, it looks like the model is going for an Atlantic-driven month. So this is the 500 millibar height anomaly for February 2017 from Beijing Climate Centre, placing low pressure out to the west and bringing in westerlies across the country, albeit there is some ridging up to the northeast, but it looks quite weak, and it takes till the second half of the month to really start to strengthen that. So the temperature anomaly is coming out very significantly milder than average again with this model for February 2017. Very much in line with what the Beijing Climate Centre, with what the CFSV2 is doing. And in terms of the Beijing Climate Centre precipitation anomaly, that's coming out wetter than average. So both models are seemingly in agreement, a very strong agreement for a mild and wet month in February, and really Atlantic driven as well. Yes, the Beijing Climate Centre does pull in a little bit of high pressure to the north and the northeast, particularly in the middle and second half of the month, but overall it's not enough really to stop the Atlantic. So it's going, both models are strongly indicating wet, windy and mild February. Now, do we agree with that idea? Well, we are already seeing signs of pressure rising across Scandinavia next week. We don't know yet whether it's going to be strong enough to fend off the Atlantic and turn the winds into the east. So this is another very, very difficult forecast to get together. Similar to the other 2 months this winter, it's been a really complicated winter to forecast. So it is going to be with low confidence, but I think they're probably overdoing this Atlantic signal a little bit. So I think they're overdoing the temperatures. I think they're overdoing the precipitation. So I'll say coming back, or pulling it back towards average temperatures again, I think we're certainly starting off on a very mild note. I think we will have mild Atlantic-driven periods, but I also think we'll get colder periods as well, and that could be particularly around the middle part of the month, where I wouldn't be at all surprised if we got a few days, potentially, of very cold easterly winds. Not sure they'll last all that long, but sort of 3-4 days, potentially, of really quite cold weather, and then probably going back into the Atlantic flow again. There is the risk with this month, quite evidently, how strongly it's signalled that it could be a very mild and very wet and stormy February. But as I think the models are going a bit over the top, with that signal. So let's pull it back, pull the temperatures back, not to colder than average, I wouldn't go that far, but pull it back to close to average with a lot of variation, and there is potential for some really quite cold weather, but also some very mild weather as well, and averaging it all out, we come out around normal. Precipitation is much harder to predict. I think it probably will have a wetter month, actually, than we've had for quite a while. So I wouldn't be that surprised if precipitation finishes up above average. A lot of that will be rain. Some of it might be snow. If we do get a cold period, I think it could be quite a snowy period as well, actually. So let's say precipitation goes a little bit above average this month, which is the first time for quite a long while that we'll have had a wet month. But not as wet as these models are signaling. They're going for very wet month. I'm not seeing that. I think it'll be closer to average, but a little bit on the wetter side. Temperatures near normal, and that will disguise a lot of variation through the month. Very mild at times, but also quite a chance, anyway, some quite significant colder interludes as well. So it's another really complicated month. I've got low confidence, and well, if the temperature and precipitation averages update at the UK Met Office, we'll be able to evaluate this forecast when we do the next month ahead forecast in March, as always. And talking of March, have a quick sneak peek of that. Essentially, it's a very similar pattern in March to what we've got in February from the CFS V2. So this is the 700 millibar high anomaly for March with a deep trough in the Atlantic. Quite a lot of ridging up to the northeast, but really it's the Atlantic that's still driving things. So another Atlantic-driven month in March, probably therefore quite wet. And fairly mild as well, potentially. But, again, if we've not got good confidence what model is showing for February, we can't have particularly good confidence for what model is showing in March. So that's regards to this February month-end forecast. We're going for near normal temperatures, but disguising a lot of variation with potential for some very mild weather at times, but also some really quite potent cold interludes, that perhaps most likely through the second week and up to the middle part of the month. And in terms of the precipitation signal, I think a little bit wetter than we've had it over the past few months, and some of that will be rain. Some of it could be, in the colder interludes, could be snow. Right, we'll have the second video at Gansworthy's later on today. We'll be looking at the weather next week to 10 days, seeing what this Scandinavian high is doing. And I've got news on the stratospheric warming that we've been talking about over the past few days. So come back to that this afternoon. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.